He was born into a family belonging to a noble family. His sisters frequently inspired him by wishing him dead for being a complete mediocrity, and the assignee of a snake. And the girls were cheering him up by saying that marrying him was tantamount to demotion. Close musketeers, on the other hand, liked to exercise with him frequently. He was thankful to all this happiness for making him stronger, and if they bowed to his strength, he could come the most reputed and strongest in this world. After all, he's the notorious proprietor of dragon blood in his modes. Panandeo Jang. House meeting room. Jang Chinha, the head of the Jang and D families, asked those present if anyone knew why had gathered them. J. Fon Jan. Clunk and J. Tun Long had nothing to say. And only John Bie suggested that it was because moment was the death anniversary of the former head of the family, John Kai, and John China dropped the mug out of surprise and said, "This is maximum gibberish." And incontinently gave an order from moment onwards any rituals in honor of Jang Kaian are interdicted, after which he explained why had called them the Jang family was coming to negotiate moment, so they all demanded to be well set so as not to make a single boo. After a while, nearly in the timber, a youthful man sat at his father's headstone and talked about the fact that in the once time the ultimate had ruled the fates and had given his all for the good of the Jung family. Moment is also the anniversary of his death, but no bone can hold rituals in his honor, and it was illegal. He admitted that he can't do anything because he has no way to get his family back on their bases, and so far he has been ostracized, and so he cannot complete his father's path, which he considered a disgrace on his soul. Suddenly steps were heard and a new shadow appeared at the grave. Turning around, the youthful man saw that J. Clunk had approached him, after which he incontinently bowed to the grave. Jang Clunk began to tell his uncle that he flashed back that day well as if it was history, and the youthful man wanted to thank him for his kind words to his father. But suddenly Jang Clunk said that Jang Kaian would not be suitable to atone for his atrocities, indeed with his death. He explained that such a pincher didn't earn all the favors brought to him, and destroying the immolation, said Kaian fully destroyed the character of the Jang family. Seeing this, the youthful man couldn't contain himself, and angrily began to gather energy, and wrapped his fist in red energy, and aimed it straight at the man's face. But suddenly Jang Clunk was suitable to snare his fist, and began to mock his birth, also summoning the power of his birth. He cried that he was a wild assignee of cows, and squeezing the youthful man's hand harder, he said that without the support of his favorite daddy he was nothing. Also used the strength of the bull birth to hit the youthful man with all his might. It crashed into a near tombstone, turning it into pebbles. After which Jang Clunk went to Jang Kank tombstone and asked him to look at his lowly son for later. He was a disgrace. Jang Ping walked over to him and still decided to remind Jang Ting of commodity videlicet. The fact that Eris Zhang had formerly arrived at their place and asked him to guess if she would break her engagement to him. After all, Jang Ting is just a swagger, and he simply can't embarrass himself in front of people. Laughing contentedly at this low life. After mocking Jang Ting to his heart's happy, Jang Clunk still left. Jang Ting stood up, leaning on the headstone, and called himself a four. He had really erected up visions towards this family. Realizing had leaned on the headstone, he removed his hand and walked down, admitting that had no way of working the problem, and so he was sure that all he could do was fight. Until he failed. As suddenly a golden energy burst out from the bloody tombstone. Also incontinently rushed towards Jang Ting. A amenable spirit formed from the energy. He was scarified that this youthful man had been so wronged by fate since he was youthful, and if he really was so temperamental, he was willing to help him succeed indeed. Feeling commodity, Jang Ting turned around to look at the grave, and realized that had been over-agitated, after which he apologized to the unnamed ancestors of the Jang family. And he promised that he put their gravestones back over, if he could. Come back alive, how's Jang? The people saluted Hed Jang as he arrived and said that Hed Jang was formerly staying for them. They were agitating amongst themselves about how prestigious the Jang family's headed Jang was and enjoying the sight of the Jang family's doxy Hed. Jang had told his son that moment was a great day for accommodations, but she had formerly managed to fail the Jang family. After a while they still made it to the meeting hall, where Jang Qina extolled the strength of Jang and asked for their head's help. To which the head of Jang replied that Jang Qing's words were veritably serious, and their clan was fabulous on Visage Long Island, and thus dare not forget their family chief. Shan said that Jang's son Qinhe is a leader among the youngish generation of the Jang family, and numerous roads are open for a youthful man with similar bents. Jang Qina couldn't help but thank Hed Jang for saying those words, saying that he was easily blarneying him, and also honored that Hed Jang's son was indeed beautiful. Jang Qina leaned towards Hed Jang and reluctantly began to talk about Jang Ting. He said that as soon as they arrived, Jang Ting was blown down by the wind upon. Hearing this, Jen ordered for this to stop because, to put it bluntly, the marriage contract they had preliminarily made couldn't be changed, but his son would only marry Jang Tianlong. Jang Tianlong thanked Chief Jang and walked up to his son and said that he was honored. Head Jang agreed to their marriage, admitting that they looked good together, which made Jang Qina laugh out loud, and blazoned that in honor of this the Jang family would hold a feed moment. And present Miss Jang with Shuang chargers as a congratulatory gift. Jang Visage asked where similar treasures could come from, and Jang Ba was agitated about the forthcoming marriage, when suddenly there was a cry ordering them to stop. Jang Ting appeared in the doorway. Looking at him, everyone allowed that he wanted to disgrace himself again because he was a walking disgrace of the Jang family. Jang Ting reminded his uncle that moment was the anniversary of his father's death. But he was too busy to recognize him. Head Jang signaled for Jang Ting to walk towards them, causing Jang Qina to fear slightly, and cried to Jang Ting that he was being too cocky since the Jang family had formerly made concessions. By coming to see the moment, Jang Ting walked through the hall and asked Jang Shernan if she really wanted to get wedded upon. Hearing this, she used her golden pheasant birth and asked how dare he speak to her in such an impertinent tone. That youthful family members were astounded by the strength of the golden pheasant's birth, for indeed a single expression was enough to realize that Jang Ting couldn't stand it, and wrangle in front of Jang Shernan on his knees. Jang Sinan told Jang Ting that they couldn't be together because there was too important difference between their births, after which she demanded that this circus stop later. She was only willing to marry Jen Tun Long. She demanded that Jang Ting write a repudiation of the engagement, after which she'd be engaged to Jen Tian Long an alternate time, and only under that condition was she willing to marry into the Jen clan. Jang Ting asked if she was joking about it. After all, they were firstly non-natives to each other, and he didn't watch about her. Jang Xingyin cried that Jang Ting was too greedy. As Non Long suddenly stopped her to stop remonstrating that rubbish, after which he leaned over to Jang Ting and revealed that Jan Shernan had been given to him back on the day Jen Kong failed. After which he admitted that his bridegroom was a beauty. Hail! This Jing Ting was astounded at what he heard as he realized what the man had done. And Jenin Long covered his mouth with a attic to hide his smile and praise. Jen Ting's facial expression, Jing Ting rued that Jenin Long was his elder family, and Qin Qina ordered him to stop it, because no matter how his father had formerly put their family down, but his jest was smirching them all. In order to discipline the impertinent man, Jen Qing had decided to educate him an assignment on behalf of the head of the family. Just as suddenly Jin Ting started laughing out loud at the sight of such an imposing evil appearance. Moment was his father's anniversary, and had gone to the cemetery to recognize his memory. While they couldn't indeed show a little humanity, Jin Ting cried that the ultimate keeps trying to bully him using force for particular gain. And while the other sons cheapen him by crying oxy, he just watches it all. And also Jen Chia was the bone who managed to destroy their family in a time, as well as the foundation that his father had erected for so numerous times. Pointing his cutlet down, he said that this alone was the entire strength of Jen Chinha. Jen Tun Long ordered his family to stop talking rubbish. But he incontinently ordered him to shut his mouth, for indeed he did have a drop of kindness in him. Jan coughed loudly to stop the strife, and said that they had chosen a bad time to visit, and that thus another day should be set to bandy. The engagement also departed with his son Jean was about to leave the hall after them, but Jean Tan Long ordered him to stop because he wasn't allowed to leave. To which Jean Ting replied that if their father had commodity to bandy with him, had find him, and with one last look round he told them had fight to the last man. Zen China cried after him to come back, for no one would let him leave so fluently. And Jean Tian Long asked him not to worry, promising that Jen Ting could no way bother them again. Jang Klunk came to the family graveyard and incontinently attacked Jiang Ting. He was angry because had lately shown himself to be a bad judge of character by stigmatizing their family. And since indeed the head of the family wanted him dead, Jiang Ping was fine with letting him die fluently and snappily. Jiang Ting knew that Jiang China wasn't a weakling at all, but he still decided to join the general group, and so he demanded that they bring him to see it. But Jiang Klunk was indeed more rankled that Jiang Ting kept opening his rotten mouth, and so he formally again rushed to attack. Jiang Ting refused to die so fluently, and began to use his birth to try and defend himself. But he did make it in time, causing Jiang Klunk to deliver a painful blow to his neck. He also seized onto it, and demanded that Jiang Ting kneel down, and started calling out loudly for his forefather, promising that only after such an outgrowth would his cadaver be left alone. But Jiang Ting wasn't going to put up with such a thing. And wrangle in Jiang Ping's face, showing his station from commodity like this, Jiang Klunk wasn't going to give Chen Ting a chance presently, and told the man face for face. After that he demurred him and said that he would kill him and also jump on his cadaver until he got wearied being transferred. Flying Jiang Ting was still suitable to recapture his balance and get to his bases. Also he gave Jiang Ding the middle cutlet and told Jiang Klunk that he was just like his father, preferring to play rather than fight. Jiang Klunk was offended by similar words and incontinently summoned a bull, trying to destroy Jiang Ting with a single blow. Jiang Ting had been staying for this moment, and was formally preparing to put his life on the line to take his chance. Also the BLL still crashed into him, creating a large dust pall. After dealing with Jiang Ting, Jiang Klunk began to scarf at just how crazy this brat was. Just as suddenly he noticed Ji out of the dust pall commodity flew out, rushing into the air. And with a little near look he realized it was just a distraction. Incontinently laterally Jan Pei looked at the dust pall. But it was formally too late, as Jiang Ting had formally gotten close to him and was about to end this fight. Suddenly numerous chains flew out of nowhere in an instant, wrapping around Jing. As it turned out, Jiang Klunk didn't dare to go on his own indeed to this weakling, and so he decided to back up. Demanding Jiang Ping's hand, told Jiang Ting that this dirty canine would have to stop the blood loss as well. Jiang Klunk said that Jiang Ting was just a fabricator, for if his clan was as strong as he believed, he wouldn't be suitable to stand in his way. After which Yung Klunk brought his cutlet towards Jiang Ting, creating a cut, surprising him, for Jiang Ting realized that he could no longer change his blood. Jiang Klunk said that he didn't have the mood, hence had unbend him out rather snappily. And getting to his heart, began to laugh, mocking him, for the heart in his hand was so soft, and he could take his life with just a little squeeze of his hand. As a friend in Jiang Ting's head a voice sounded, it asked if he understood his strength, to which Jiang Ting replied that he did, but its price was too high. After which a voice rejoiced at this, and Jiang Ting shone with a golden light. flourishing the girding people, and a moment laterally exploded with power, freeing himself from his conditions and scattering his opponents. He pulled down his headband, uncurling his hair, and the spirit of his ancestor appeared above him, a golden dragon resting on his shoulder. Jiang Ping's aides were shocked at how strong Jiang Ting had suddenly come, because it was simply insolvable. But Jiang Ping rushed towards Jiang Ting, crying for them to attack again. After all, it was only a barranca. At the same moment, the ancestor spirit told Jiang Ting that it was giving him all of its power, and thus he should blow up his opponents, and incontinently lashed out at Jiang Clunk, crying about how no matter how important the proletariat tried to be, more had no way changed. J. Clunk was about to take out that arrogant brat. But suddenly he entered a punch from Jiang Ting. He cried that head no longer look at those above or those below. After which he incontinently jumped and was above the falling Yung Clunk in the blink of an eye. And in the coming moment he stomped that arrogant Hall into the ground. Jiang Ping wept and began to supplicate Jiang Ting not to kill him. He promised that head no way dare to indeed touch him again. But Jiang Ting wasn't going to hold back. He was going to take vengeance on him, not only for himself, but also for daring to personality his forefather. Jiang Ping's aides were astonished that had been defeated by a pathetic proletariat, and thus incontinently gathered to flee the battleground and report everything to Jiang Tianlong. A red dragon figure formed behind Jiang Ting's back, and he said that it was now his duty. Jiang Ting seized Jiang Clunk by the hair and dragged him to his father's grave, and demanded that he apologize to his father, and Jiang Ping unresisting bowed before the grave, and admitting that he was wrong, he began to ask for remission. Also Jiang Ting ordered that he tell his fraudulent father that he'd soon recapture everything that rightfully belonged to him. Jiang Clunk agreed and incontinently ran down from this place. But only when he stepped outside the graveyard did he roar to Jiang Ting not to be so arrogant, or differently he would wipe him into greasepaint. The ancestor spirit was frustrated at how useless the Jiang familiars at law were, as they were fully failing to use the openings available to them. Just as suddenly Jiang Ting bowed to the ancestor and thanked him for this revitalization. He pledged that if necessary, he'd go through fire and water at any threat. The ancestor laughed at this. He said that he'd been the guardian of the dragon's blood for times, and his clan had been worshipping him for numerous times, and thus could do without bowing. He explained that their family had managed to open the vessel, and the dragon's power had burst out because of it. The ancestor ordered Jiang Ting to get up and said that he did like disturbances in the clan, but it was formerly good that Jiang Ting was suitable to call him out by calling out to Uncle Jiang. To which Jiang Ting replied that the youngish generation was shamed for disturbing his uncle's peace. Also asked how the power of the dragons had been sealed. The ancestor said that we must not forget how non-natives hundreds of times ago. Jiang Ting intruded his ancestor, asking if he meant Panlong Palace. And the man replied that the story was exactly about him. He said that in those times the Ponan Palace was on the descent. But no bone knew of their strength. All that was known was the abnormal supernatural combat power of the Ponan. In a short period of time the palace was suitable to crush all the major families and take all the immortal coffers, and in the end it was the Jung family that fought against the Pan. The Ponan used force and at first won the battle. At that time the ancestor was at the peak of his power, just one step down from eternity. He was confident that he could destroy Ponan, and so he risked everything and came to the Jiang family's graveyard in hunt of an ancient burial point. He was veritably nervous, but he managed to find the ancestor and recklessly awakened his spirit, and despite the inhibitions destroyed the physical body and sealed the spirit in that place. He fought without fear of dying, but the outgrowth of the battle was still unknown. With this story Jiang Tang was still convinced that all those legends about the dragon power flowing in their modes were true. Latterly the ancestor verified it. He admitted that After realizing the full power of the Jiang family had hoped. For a victorious outgrowth, Zhang Ting said that the bone who kept the power of the dragon's martial strength was now living. I in the Panlong Palace, and his father realized this, and indeed though he was also its bearer, he wasn't a true dragon. And indeed so he was a genius of his time. His father wanted to reclaim what was rightfully theirs, but he was injured by Pan Lan's men, causing him to come ignominious. Jiang Ting swore that had not allowed the Ponan Palace to live in peace until he atoned for what had done. After hearkening to the story, the ancestor told Jiang Ting that he would give him commodity that would help him awaken the dragon's power, the 9 secrets of dragon reversal. Since this fashion is mentally transmitted, the Ponan Palace will no way get to it, so one day Jiang Ting will have the chance to become the true guardian of the dragon's power. And Master Panlong Jiang Ting said that he couldn't stay, and so he'd start studying in the Timber of Ice and Honey right down. After a while, in the vicinity of the Timber of Ice and Honey, commodity exploded and a large column of bank could be seen. The father ordered Jiang Ting to stop and no way use this fashion again. Jiang Ting asked why. For with this fashion his father could kill. And the ancestor intruded him starting to tell him that martial trades were divided into 9 spheres according to situations: breath, convert, might, warrior, shell, schoolteacher, blood, mentor, palpitation, elder, brain, head, heart, sovereign, life, emperor, and soul. Recognize the position of the honorable bone was only known from legends, and no bone had ever been suitable to reach it. Heavenly Wen Xuan is a secret fashion of the Jiang family, and he needs to reach at least the shell position to train it, else he will himself and die. The alternate time round. After these explanations, Jiang Ting realized that this was the reason why his blood had dispersed and his body had come weak. The father asked him to calm down, as he would be suitable to help with the training. The ancestor promised to educate Jiang Ting the youthful Pong fashion. As this hand position suited his fire blood rotation, it would nourish and strengthen it, after which he handed over the assignee fashion youthful pomade level. From the middle there's a movement towards the opponent on the 9th time of attention. With a short movement the strike perfects the boundaries. Jiang Ting told himself that he no longer wanted to live peacefully, and he demanded to reach his maximum strength just as he was suddenly attacked by the boar's nearly heart. The girl told her family that on the coming quest she had not let him Mississippi's similar prey, and he agreed, for Yao Shan was the autocrat's favorite. The girl asked Yan if it would be dangerous this time. And the ultimate asked Xa, yearning to be quieter. Just as suddenly lightning smelled commodity and incontinently ran deep into the fir timber, and the girl ran after him. Meanwhile, Jiang Ting was formally planning and saying 9. Metamorphoses are 9 changes. I turned into a hermit and bathed in blood. Awakened the true dragon. Finishing the contemplation, he was veritably happy with the result, for had been suitable to overcome 3 situations at formerly. The ancestor explained that it was his nature to do so, as the 9 secrets of dragon. Reversal was the main fashion for their kind. And it was peerless. Zhang Ting admitted that his speed was indeed 2. Presto, and said that he demanded to be indeed killed after all the adversaries around the timber were relatively weak, while at the same time it was unknown what was deep within the timber. Just as suddenly a canine came running up to him, followed by a girl who happened to hear that he was going deep into the timber. She explained that had encountered numerous effects unexplained, and thus it was dangerous for him to go alone, after which she offered to keep him company. Zhang Ting thanked her. For the assignation. As suddenly, the rest of her group reached them, and their chief turned to the girl named Xa Nan and said that they had enough people on their platoons. Still he didn't mind taking another man at all. Handed of course. That he knew how to hunt, which made his attendant launch laughing. The girl explained to her family that it was too dangerous to go into the timber alone, and the further help his energy defending other people. As he passed by, he asked Jiang Ting how he indeed dared to mess with him aloud. The man had had enough of life. Lumen asked Jiang Ting not to be angry with her family because I was not really angry at all, to which Jiang Ting replied that the words of the girls were always veritably weighty to him, and thus he couldn't differ. Suddenly Yawn asked why she was still talking to him. After all, at the fewest peril had incontinently flash his heels and be killed while escaping. Lum Yunan apologized to Jiang Ting for this, for she had firstly offered to take him with them. Also she tied a whoosh to his hand. And explained that it belonged to her Lu family, and if anything happened to him he just had to blow the whoosh and she would come to him incontinently. Following the fleeing Lumen, the ancestor complained that he hadn't smelled the nasty smell of love in times. Jiang Ting asked not to say that after all she was just a girl who showed benevolence, and minding for others had come her habit. And he hopes her trip will come without any problems. Just as suddenly the ancestor said that the thing around the guy's neck was relatively unusual, and that it could both bring riches and beget great disaster. Jiang Ting said that it was time for them to go to the timber of ice. A timber of ice and deers. Jiang Ting chased after the firewolf and cried for it to stop. After which he used Yan's palm, releasing a ball of honey from his hand. But suddenly the wolf turned to ashes in an inn. And so he asked how such a thing had happened. The ancestor explained that his blood and the timber wolf's blood were inharmonious, and indeed 5 strokes of the yang palm would be enough to wipe it out. Suddenly Jiang Ting noticed Commodity's strange left wing of the wolf. The ancestor told me that it was a yan lozenge, a lozenge of eternity. Any evil beast that lived to a certain phase would accumulate energy in its body and produce yan inside its body, but a person cannot directly absorb it inside his body, as the consequences are scary to indeed imagine. Turning around, he was amazed that, having not heeded to the story to the end, Zhang Ting had formerly eaten this lozenge. Suddenly his body began to be enveloped by blue energy, which was relatively strange. The ancestor honored that although the yawn itself was extremely strong and a bare human would not be suitable to upgrade it, but the capacities of Jiang Ting's body were truly unconceivable. Suddenly a loud howl was heard from hence, and Jiang Ting incontinently realized that it wasn't for nothing in the icy part of the timber the ice wolves had formerly slaughtered some people and were formerly heading towards the remnants of the team. The alarmed Yan cried that he didn't want to die then from the wolves, and after a moment he came up with a plan. He raised the blade to Lum Mun's neck, and when asked what he was doing, Yan called her a stupid mutter and ordered her to stay then as bait, and if she tried to cheat had cut her into pieces. He was glad that indeed though this pack was strong they weren't paying attention to him, and since they were concentrated on this idiot had a chance to escape. Allowing about it made him laugh. Couldn't stay any longer for those wolves to devour her. Also he ran as far down from them as possible, crying to Lum Yunan that had tell LS family about her stalwart death. Suddenly Commodity happened that none of them anticipated. Jiang Ting jumped out of nowhere and used his youthful wind to swish one of the wolves. Lumen and thanked Zhang Ting for saving her, and he asked her to hide behind him. Yan was angry that a bare servant girl was recognized to be saved, and cried to the wolves to deal with this shy beast right down. Jiang Ting asked the ancestor why those wolves were gaping at Lumen, but the ancestor didn't answer. He realized it was as if the wolves were under hypnotism and flashed back an ancestor saying Commodity about disaster. He asked Lum Yunan what had happened. Then, as she suddenly cried for him to be more careful, and they were contemporaneously attacked by all the wolves, from which Jiang Ting incontinently used his birth power and tried to cover Lumen. Alarmed by what she saw, Lum Yunan fell to her knees, and Jiang Ting asked her not to be frightened by it, as it was all him. The wolves weren't going to stop and began to bite through the dragon. In a moment they were formerly eating on his hands, which made him realize that these wolves would stop at nothing. Lumen and thanked Zhang Ting for his help, but admitted that she couldn't watch him get killed, and since it was her that the wolves wanted, she'd give what they wanted. Lumen got up from the ground and told Zhang Ting that he must surely survive, and incontinently ran down, from which the wolves detached themselves from Jiang Ting and rushed towards Lumen. But moments before the bite, Jiang Ting dived forward and incontinently seized Lumen. Also, he pulled her close to him and put his arm around her, telling her not to run down. And the wolves formally again began to claw their fangs and claws into Jiang Ting. Yao Shan, who was watching from the side, couldn't stay for both sides to weaken, because also had be suitable to take down Ya's vessel unchecked. Jiang Ting was trying to understand why the wolves kept trying to chase after her, realized that had missed commodity. Lum Yunan began to supplicate Yan to save Jiang Ting. While Shed distract the wolves from him hearing about Jiang's distraction drum had a flash of light, he realized that it was the ancestor who had talked about how it was the mascot that could bring disaster, and realized that this adipose had firstly colluded his conspiracy. Yao Shan refused Lum Yunan as he allowed it was a joke, and reminded her that his life was more important than this brat. Suddenly Jiang Ting used the 9 secrets of Dragon Reversal, unleashing the power of the birth, after which the red dragon scattered the girding wolves in the blink of an eye. Yao Shan was surprised by what he saw, for the blood that was just now gushing from Jiang Ting's injuries suddenly stopped. Jiang Ting told Lum Yunan that they would break through, and asking her not to move, removed her mascot, after which he tossed it away, getting relief of the wolf problem following. The mask oath through the blade, crying to Yaon that it was now his toy. A moment laterly, the blade nailed the mascot to Yao Shan's casket. Yaon was shocked by this. He cried to Jiang Ting that he'd lament if he killed him, after all he's the main heir at law. After which he looked into Jiang Ting's eyes and realized that this person's aspect was far more intimidating than some wolves. Yan said that he was an heir at law from the notorious Yao family of Jihua, and they couldn't do that to him. After all, if a single hair cascade from his head, they will die a painful death. Hearing this, Jiang Ting disregarded his origin, and said that he was from the Jiang family. After that, the wolves still jumped on their new target, preparing to take her life. Yan demanded of Jiang Ting with Lum Yunan that they save him, else he'd take vengeance on them for it. But when they were about to leave, he started soliciting them for help, screaming that he was wrong. On the way down from the battle point, Lum Yunan asked Jiang Ting to let her go. After that, she started to apologize for causing him to get hurt. But he asked her not to worry about it. Yashan could hardly survive in the wolf's jaws. But if someone hovered her, let her say that Jiang Ting killed Yan. He explained that he was going through a bad time, and thus had no reason to be happy as it was, so he wanted to at least see her off. He refocused out the way out of the timber, and since the peril was over, he bid her announcement due. And Lum Yunan promised him that one day they would surely meet. Meanwhile, at the Jiang family cemetery, Jiang Qinlong's followers informed him that Jiang Ting was nowhere to be seen. Jiang Ping told his family that Jiang Ting couldn't have run far down. But the ultimate had to differ, since he wasn't then after all, and since that was the case, had a way to make Jiang Ting look for them himself. He suggested that the sisters destroy the cemetery. Back at the cemetery, Jiang Ting was amazed at what he saw, and knelt down to supplicate remission from his father and mama. After all, they had dared to abuse their grave, and so he wasn't going to let them live. After a while, Jiang Bie, who was on guard, saw that Jiang Ting had decided to come later each, and blocking his path, he decided to give advice to Jiang Ting videlicet to stop where he stands. But Jiang Ting was easily not in the mood, and so he asked Jiang Bao to get out of the way. Jiang Bie took off his chapeau and apologized to Jiang Ting, using the catamount palpitation, after which he threw away his chapeau and incontinently dived at Jiang Ting. But Jiang Ting was fluently suitable to block Jiang Bie's attack, and using the power of the birth, he threw him down, formally again ordering him out of the way. Also, he told Jiang Bie that the ultimate was able of further, and his father justifiably valued him, but Jiang Bao wasn't going to stop. And formally again asked Jiang Ting to stop, because he should know that this was a trap and there was no way he could survive. He advised him to stay for Zhang Yong and Jiang Zi to return, and only also fight them. To which Jiang Ting replied that it was too late, and that he couldn't call himself a man if he couldn't put an end to the perpetual bullying. Looking at the back of the retreating Jiang Ting, Jiang Bao rejoiced at the strength the youthful master had been suitable to gain in just a many days, but unfortunately it was easily not enough. Meanwhile, in the megacity, one of the guards asked why they had to guard Jiang Clunk, after which the alternate guard called him an idiot because it was logical that had come after him first, and they would not leave Jiang Ting alive. Jiang Club sobbed sitting in front of his son. He was allowing about how to help him as his injuries were still not healing. And Jiang Clunk began to reprimand the bone for blubbing like a girl after all he was still alive. Jing suddenly cried to Jiang Clunk to meet him, which made Jiang Clunk smile because Jiang Ting had come right into the trap. Suddenly Jiang Ting used the piercing the door guard using the exquisite son's fist, and began to tease the guard who allowed he could master him. After which he turned to Jiang Clunk and said that moment had end this formerly and for all. But Jiang B. complained to Jiang Ting for what had done to his son, and now he dared to break into their house. So he rushed over to Jiang Ting, wanting to show the brat where he belonged. Jiang Ting incontinently replied to this attack and incontinently used his birth power to block the attack. But Zhang Bath scowled at this and called the ignorant brat. And sticking the needle into the dragon said that using blood palpitation is extremely dangerous. After which Jiang Clunk began to laugh out loud at this, for all this meant that his blood palpitation would soon return to his master. Jiang Ting was shocked that some super stud was suitable to suppress his dragon power. Thus he decided to attack Jiang Bha to release his hard-won strength. But the ultimate said only that this fight was too easy, and used the palpitation of the bull. After which the bull sorrowfully landed on Jiang Ting's back. Zhang Ting asked Jiang Bha why he was giving way to wrong for a piddly gain. After all, he was the eldest in their family. He replied that his son was everything to him, and thus he could not do else. Jiang Clunk cried at his father to stop talking and took down Jiang Ting's palpitation. In response to which, the ultimate decided to remind him that there was no turning back. But Jiang Ping asked his father if he wanted him to remain impaired like this, and if he still did kill Jiang Ting, someone differently would. And pecking his cutlet into his when Jiang Bha said that he was only doing it for his sake, whereupon he said that by immolating his blood he was invoking a black auspice, and as soon as a drop of blood hit the super stud, the bud on the tip opened. Jiang Ping asked his father not to be hysterical of this, promising that had no way leave him. A black talisman appeared in front of Jiang B, and he asked it to return his son's palpitate. It was only after seeing this talisman that Jiang Ting realized what it was. It belonged to the Panlong house. Having fallen on hard times, the house of Panlong began to use a interdicted talisman, which they used to deprive people of their blood palpitation. With this talisman, the master's strength was insignificant, and the Jiang family labeled it the Black Auspice Talisman. Jiang Ting asked what it was all for. Also Jiang Ban asked if he really wanted to know that, and started pulling out Jiang Ting's palpitation. Jiang Ting allowed that since Jiang Bai was related to the Panlong house, he must know commodity about his father's death, so there was no time to waste. Jiang Ting called out to the 9th dragon, causing it to stir, and a stiletto flew out, after which Jiang Ting ordered the fire serpent to return to him. But Jiang Bha boosted the goods of the Black Omen talisman, stinking his palpitation briskly, but because of this his palpitation started to get smelled in as well. Jiang Ting told Jiang Ban not to do that, else his palpitation would vanish too. He said that Jiang Ping's strength wasn't worth it. Jiang Clunk said that Jiang Feng had oppressed them, and now the hour of reckoning had come. He cried that it would be a mercy to kill him, but unfortunately in his death a palpitation would also be lost. To which Jiang Ting replied that it was his own fault, as he continued to hide like a sissy, like a life caching behind other people's tails. Jiang Bha ordered Jiang Ting to surrender. For there was no point in him fighting. He explained that when his son came stronger, the whole islet of Ponan would observe him. But Jiang Ting scouted him. He said that it used be since Jiang Clunk is just a weakling. Jiang Bha ordered him to shut up. He said that Jiang Ting had no right to talk about him, and thus he should just die. Saying farewell to his palpitation. Suddenly all of Jiang Ting's palpitation had formerly nearly come out, causing him to scream loud ly in pain. Meanwhile Jiang Bia was precisely observing the situation inside the house. But he wasn't going to act yet, as there was still no chance. Jiang Qing's house. Jiang Tianglong asked Jiang Qina if Jiang Qina was upset. Also the ultimate asked if Jiang Bha would kill him. Jiang Tianlong explained that Jiang Bha was strong enough, that Jiang Ting couldn't match him, but for a different outgrowth he had prepared arrows able of piercing anything. Devoid of a palpitation, Jiang Ting fell exhaustedly without reaching his thing. Jiang Bi said that indeed if his son couldn't leave this cruel mainland he didn't want anyone to command him. Jan Clunk chortled and took out a crossbow from under the mask, and told his father that it was time to wrap effects up, and aiming his crossbow at Jiang Ting. He said that he was nothing but an empty shell, so had no choice but to die. Realizing that his hour was over, Jiang Ting tried to touch his mascot and apologized to his father. After all had failed in his vengeance, and his life would end so simply just as. Suddenly the mascot around Jiang Ting's neck glowed, and the arrow fired from the crossbow was stopped right in front of Jiang Ting. Jiang Bha and Jiang Clunk were shocked by this. They couldn't understand who had repelled the arrow. Suddenly the arrow that had stopped at the hedge turned around and aimed straight at the talisman, from which Jiang Bi, who hadn't been suitable to reply in time, was stunned due to the palm being snared from his hands. Jiang Clunk couldn't believe that destruction was indeed possible, and Jiang Bha fell to the bottom exhaustedly. He cried to his father that the talisman was too precious and thus demanded to be restored. But he apologized to his son. He told him that the talisman couldn't be restored, and since it was weakened had not be suitable to help. Jiang Clunk was angry because he could no longer recover his palpitation, and started firing at Jiang Ting, but this time the arrows that collided with the hedge were destroyed incontinently. After that, a ray from the sky struck Jiang Ting directly, and the voice that came on with it informed everyone that Jiang Ting was the true head of the family, and people like them will no way kill him. When Jiang Bia heard this voice, he scowled, as this voice was familiar to him. Jiang Qina said that it was Jiang King's voice, and Jiang Tian long since had prepared to kill Jiang Ting, but he ever escaped. Their plan has failed, but since Jiang Ting hasn't reached the master rank, there are still numerous ways to kill him, but now it's stylish for them to lay low. Jiang Kong asked his son to wake up, and he honored the voice and replied that he could hear it, except that he no longer had a palpitation. Jiang Qian ordered him to look at himself. He asked if Jiang Ting had forgotten what had been tutored, and Jiang Ting replied, fulfill what he promised, no way give up. Keep his word and do no detriment. Jiang Ping walked up to Jiang Clunk and called him lucky. Later he was a youthful master with a useless pool, and indeed so he manages to survive when his life is on the line. Jiang Ping blubbed and asked him why he was so unlucky. Suddenly a knock was heard, and Jiang Bia flew into the room through the door, who incontinently knocked Jiang Clunk to the ground, saving Jiang King. He reminded Jiang Clunk that he had infuriated the ancestors, so he should stop shooting and stay for the head of the family to arrive. After a short time, the clan members who were near gathered in the room to bandy what had happened. Videlicet that Jiang Clunk had abused the headstone of Jiang Ting's parents. Jiang Ting had come to take vengeance on him, and indeed though had come to his death had survived. After a while the head of the MEM still came to them, and all bowed down to him upon seeing him. Jiang Clunk incontinently jumped up and started asking him for help. But the ultimate only told off Jang Klunk for what he had done. He asked if he could fix it. And Jang Ping cried that it was because they had all deserted him. And he was ordered to. Suddenly Jang Tun Long hit him with the addict. And ordered him not to make defenses. Jang China explained that his insolence had infuriated his ancestors, and Jang Bha hadn't only failed to raise a good heir at law but had also contributed to the most heinous of crimes, and would thus be stripped of his boons and locked. Which Jang Bha called a veritably wise decision. And the rest of the clan members also supported it. Jang China revealed that the situation in their family was extremely disquieting, and since they had all seen what an action led to, he no longer saw the point in delaying the dogfight. He blazoned that the dogfight would take place in days' time. And Jin Ting as the youthful master of their family would share in it. Jang Bha asked the former head not to allow the youthful master to share in the dogfight, to which Jang Chinha replied that the youthful master himself felt it was necessary. Else he wouldn't have a chance to prove his strength. Jang thanked him for the assignation and proudly accepted it. Zhang Ting gabbled with his ancestor at his parents' restored tombstone. Pedik assured Jang Ting that he should refuse To's share in the dogfight. And Jang Ting couldn't understand why he should refuse. He asked if his palpitation was gone ever. To which the ancestor replied that the dogfight was a trap to force Jang Ting to make a mistake and die. He explained that going into battle was the same as self-murder, since his palpitation hadn't yet recovered after using the black auspice amulet on him. Jang Ting had been told by his ancestor that he'd always have the occasion for vengeance, so it was better to retreat now, although he might have had one way. Hearing this, Jang Ting asked what it was and if had a chance later each. He was going to end them formally, and for all he cried that he mustn't miss the occasion to master them, and thus must try this system. But the ancestor ordered him to come to his senses because this system was veritably dangerous, and Jang Ting had too little chance of surviving. Jang Ting told the ancestor that his father still flashed back him. And that was why he couldn't diverge from his thing and let him down. The ancestor explained that he couldn't let him die because had too important invested in him. So he advised him to give up. Because the Jung family couldn't be saved, so it would be better for them to rot down. But without them, Jang Ting kneeled down and addressed the ancestor again. He said that it was better to die than to live a life of igni hail. Of the descendants' determination, the ancestor quivered. He asked Jang Ting to flash back that death would take everything from him, but he was not going to give up, and cried loudly that had made the final decision. The ancestor dejectedly bowed his head and told him that since Jang Ting was so stubborn, also they'll have to make their way to Chu. After a while, a crowd of people had gathered outside the apothecary, and everyone just wanted to buy sanctification potions. Zen Brace blazoned to them that these potions had run out. But they could offer commodity differently, but people demanded the sanctification potion, for the hour of the dogfight was formally approaching, and so they were willing to pay indeed double the price. One of the sidekicks advised him not to miss out on a client willing to pay double, so Chin Duo asked him to stay. While he conferred with his forefather on the first bottom sat a man pondering the fate of one man. For he flashed back his youth, where he too was always getting into trouble indeed. Though Lean allowed that person was just another idol, it was still a pity to get relief of him. Just as suddenly Zen Brace burst into his room asking if the batch of potions was ready. In response to which Lean counted him out for entering without knocking. She and Brace explained that the guests were formerly offering double payment for the potions, and they only demanded a small quantum, and if they vended to them spare wouldn't need to worry about withdrawal presently. From which Lean laughed, and said that it wasn't as simple as he allowed. But Chien Duo wasn't going to lose his gains, so he decided to do everything himself. And promised that he'd take care of his forefather himself. But to his dismay, there were no potions. Inside the potion maker, he was shocked to see that there were phoenix eggs inside. He asked his forefather why he'd turned them Into Craven's lean chortled at this and asked his grandson to calm down and talk. For these Cravens are so nice. After which he explained that had formerly ordered the constituents, and that they were promised to arrive in a many days, after which he asked if everyone was then for the blood sanctification potion. To which Chengdu replied that there was only one similar person, it was Jiang Ting, and he came to get sauces and the Catholicon of abidance, and latterly he traveled to the west. After realizing that Jiang Ting had gone towards the wasteland, Lin asked why had gone to such a ruinous place. Ichin Brace admitted that it sounded to him as if Chang Ting was running down. From commodity, as they say the most dangerous places are the safest. At this moment Lin realized that he had undervalued this sprat. After all, he was going to use the wasteland lightning. And he most probably has a master mentoring him. Which was veritably intriguing. In the west of the islet there's a stormy wasteland. In that place the house of Panlong brazened its adversaries. And the place is called Choso. In Choso nature has ever lost its formerly graphic diversity, and there's a lightning hedge girding it. A lot of people have failed trying to get through it. But using the 9 dragon ways had be suitable to absorb the energy of the wasteland, thereby restoring his palpitation, and the ancestor was hysterical that this was the only way to recapture Jiang Ting's strength. Jiang Ting suggested that it would bring him a lot of plutocrat, and the ancestor replied that it was unfortunately true. After all, in addition to having to endure a lightning strike and inversely dangerous immersion process would follow, and so he must be careful. Misplaced souls aren't veritably sociable, and numerous masters have killed themselves before lightning could indeed flash in the sky. And since there was nothing the ancestor could do to help Jiang Ting, he advised him to flash back that every step he took could be his last. After hearkening to the schoolteacher story, Jiang Ting said that had no other, and stepped onto the wasteland. The farther Jiang Ting stepped, the more frequently he was struck by lightning, and his schoolteacher could only give him moral support. But seeing the black deers beneath the descendant spaces, he realized that the wasteland had awakened the demons within him. A moment laterly a figure formed out of the deers and mocked Jiang Ting. Jiang Ting cried at the demon to shut up and stop interposing him. But the ultimate only moved closer and laughed at the fact that as a strong spirit Jiang Ting was still the same weakling, a dead in which there's no use, and thus he's unworthy to enjoy it. Jiang Ting formerly again ordered the demon to shut up. He told him that he wanted to cover his father's name and honor hail this. The demon laughed again, and noticed that Jiang Ting was lying, causing him to incontinently start making defenses. The demon told him that Jiang Ting was just a burden on someone else's shoulders, and that Uncle Jiang was wasting his time, and indeed his father had blundered by guarding such a weakling. Compared to everyone, Jiang Ting was only a pitiful critter. Seeing this, the ancestor asked Chinu what had do in the heart of the storm if he couldn't repel indeed now. He wanted to ask if Jiang Ting would give up. So fluently the demon kept laughing at Jiang Ting, who had fallen to his knees before him. And in that moment Jiang Ting realized that he was nothing without his strength, and only lived because of his father. He allowed he was an idol, but really only assured himself with that study from what he heard. The demon was glad that had honored everything, and started laughing indeed louder later. All the main in front of him was nothing but a clunker. Jiang Ting agreed with the demon for being a solid disappointment. But that's exactly why he has to keep going. For the sake of those who believe in him, he can no longer let them down. He agreed that he demanded to apologize to his father, but not now. Had to get up and face his adversaries. Seeing Jiang Ting's determination, the demon was dissatisfied, for there was no way he'd give up. The ancestor cried to Jiang Ting to make it to the heart of the storm and head recapture his palpitation as suddenly a noise was heard, and turning round, the ancestor was shocked at what he saw. After all, the Cheyenne captain that could only be set up in the timber of ice and flames was towering above them. But the strangest thing was that it was then. At the same time Jiang Tun Long opened the pen with the captain cub allowing that Jiang Ting was too lucky for indeed he couldn't kill it. But some spirits still dared to help such a clunker, but the sauces he bought were saturated with the blood of Shao Tian's captain cubs, and so he will simply die without any chance of escape from the enraged captain. This only meant that the hour of his death had come. And since Jiang Ting would not return, Jiang Tianlong would come, the youthful master, from now on outside the megacity of Ponan. Jiang Zi asked Zhang Yong to accelerate up as they had to return. Before the fight started, Zhang Yong replied that this was his limit, as had been running for days and 3 nights. Jiang Zi rushed Zhang Yong since Jiang Bia had advised them that Jiang Ting was now in great peril, and so Jiang Zi couldn't stop fussing about him. But Jiang Yong reminded her that they were non-natives to Jiang Bao, and so he was unreliable. Jiang Zi said that they should cover Jiang Ting no matter what, and he asked her not to worry so much because since they would arrive, Jiang Ting would surely be safe. Along megacity, the arena, Jiang Tian, who offered to help Jiang Tian long with his training, which he couldn't garbage, and thanked him for the occasion to be trained by someone with such a position. Jiang Tian, who explained that had returned to see the honorable youthful master take his due place. Numerous of the people present were formerly lamenting joining the state because their adversary will be Jiang Tianlong, and the current head is doing everything just to secure his son's position, and all they want is Jiang Ting's death, so the youthful master's position is Jiang Tong's position. Jiang Tiangong studied that the people around him were only having idle exchanges, and Jean Tia replied that they were just drooling, but only Jean Tiana would come the youthful master, and thus he demanded to kill everyone who got in the way. If Jiang Tang wasn't Jiang Kang's son, he would have been dead long ago. Suddenly a figure appeared above the structures. He asked how Jiang Chen had dared to say such a thing. And in just a moment Jiang Yong was right on top of Jiang Cha and was about to educate him a assignment, but the ultimate used the power of his birth and was suitable to block the blow. After which he told Zhang Yong that he was still a reckless brute, while Jiang Zi was getting more and more beautiful, a truly good son of their family. Incontinently after Jiang Zi lifted Jiang Chu's chin with her bottom and demanded that he leave Jiang Ting alone. Jiang Tianlong said, a little embarrassed at how aggressive he was at his appearance. Jiang Zi ordered Jiang Tianlong to stop pretending, for she knows each about his true intentions. But Jiang Tianlong covered his boo with the addict and suggested that she asked Jiang Ting about everything herself. Of course, handed he could come, people started beating cans publicizing the launch of the competition. And the host cried that only the stylish martial artist could win, and thus that youthful fames would start right now. He Jiang, who would be their current sovereign, he said that moment's fight would be truly unique, as all the members of the Yong family were then to contend. For the grand prize of 1,000 spirit monuments. The observers were chanting loudly from such a price. And meanwhile, Qian Duo questioned his forefather why he chose to watch the competition moment. After all, he hates noisy places, but he only ignored him. John, who used his groundhog blood and cried out that all the rivals had formerly gathered and thus they could hail them. The Jiang family's fight was the biggest festival every time, as one can see the true substance of combat through their battles. And a new generation of the Jiang family has come together to face each other in this fierce competition. And on top of that, youthful master Jiang Ting will be joining the bout this time, so they should drink him, as he'll be giving the opening speech. So Jiang Zi wondered why he still wasn't. But Jiang Ting still didn't come on stage. Then the followership began to ask why they need him, because indeed the blood flows in the modes of this weakling, and since he ran down, it's better to start without him, as no bone cares about him. Shinduo asked his forefather his opinion on whether Jiang Ting would come or run down, to which he replied that he wasn't sure because it would take 2 days to get out of the wasteland, and he simply didn't have enough time. The exception was that he could fly, but he himself hoped that Jiang Ting would make it in time for the launch. Jiang, who got agitated because the youthful master hadn't arrived yet, and thus felt that the event wasn't grand enough, and suggested that the followership give the youthful master another round of applause. Suddenly one of the elders slighted his hand on the table and ordered them to stop it, for they had to suspend the feast. Because of a sissy elder, Jiang Shou allowed it was ridiculous that a rude boy like Jiang Ting could come a youthful master that he couldn't be good of, hence he demanded that the fight start now. Elder Jiang, he asked Jiang Shou to stay a little longer. After all, Jiang Ting was their youthful master, and they couldn't just start without him. Which made him resentful. After all, he wasn't going to take care of some piece of rubbish, while everyone present was much more competent than Yung Ting. Jiang Shou honored that Ling. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to put a bark and subscribe. These you say what you like, it's very motivating. Thanks. Good luck to you.